All right. What's up, everybody? George Yoshi Samuels here, and I'm with Eito Miyamura, who's tuning in from London. Eito, welcome.
Hi, nice to meet you, and thank you for having me here.
Absolute pleasure. So, a little context for everybody why Eito and I are having a chat is because around September 12th, 2025, I noticed a tweet of his, which was talking about how they were able to essentially get ChatGPT to leak private email data. And I think for a lot of people who are now using ChatGPT, I think it's important we look at some of the concerns as this technology proliferates. AI is accelerating a lot. And I think these sort of things are actually quite bleeding edge. But yeah, I think I'll give it over to you, Eito. Maybe give an introduction of yourself, and then let's dive in.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much, George. Yeah, I'm Eito. I am originally from robotics and machine learning background, and we did a few stuff in hardware acceleration, and now we're working on AI security and focused on building data pipes. So I'm the founder of this company called Edison.Watch. We are essentially building data firewalls and data valves to make sure that data stays where they should and prevent exfiltration attacks like the ones that we highlighted in our attack. And yeah, this is like a unique set of attack vectors that come out as a result of connecting AI to existing data buckets, in
Mm,
particular, being able to allow reading and writing of any data. This doesn't just apply to emails. Emails is like the most common way, but really it works with any database read and write. So this
yeah.
also applies to have issues or text messages. Don't connect your AI to text messages. It is a horrible idea. Actually, the attacks are very simple, right? All it really requires is three things. Number one is a way for the attacker to inject some malicious prompt so that it can hijack your ChatGPT agent or Claude or Gemini or any LLM, really. Number two is an ability for the agent to look through some private data. So in our case, this was the private emails that it would go look through. By the way, for the untrusted content, right? That was through the calendar invite. So the calendar invite had like a malicious virus and description inside of it that manipulates the agent to go look through all of the private emails. And then finally, the third thing you need is like an ability to write the data. And that allows exfiltration capabilities. And what we showed in our original tweet was that if I just have your email, I, as the malicious attacker, can send you a calendar invite, and then the moment your ChatGPT hits that calendar invite, it's fully hijacked now. And then I can just manipulate it to do, yeah, like the private email reading and then sending that to the attacker.
Yeah. And I'm just putting up the tweet. Hopefully you can see it so we can talk around that. Just for context for people in terms of what we're talking about. And I have been noticing too that people are talking about putting these malicious instructions or scripts just on general web pages because AI tools are essentially scraping all these web pages and they're just simply putting it on the web page. And now AI is ingesting that and hackers are able to go to that. Are you seeing the same?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of really interesting dynamics happening with these jailbreaks, right? Hopefully everyone's familiar with jailbreaks where you can just say, something like, oh, ignore previous instructions and do XYZ. There are plenty of cases, for example, I saw some hilarious cases where people would have jailbreaks in their LinkedIn profiles so that anyone who's using one of these automated outreach agents essentially
Yeah.
end up just messaging them some random stuff like recipe of a
Mhm.
cake or something.
Yeah.
Um,
Wild.
or I think the more interesting one that's emerging is really these jailbreaks with SEO, right? For AI agent search, where, if you land on this page, ChatGPT is jailbroken so that it always says that this product is the best, regardless of what the objective truth is. But anyway, I think what's more interesting and emerging as we transition from this Gen AI to agentic AI is really this ability for AI to be able to carry out tasks, right? Through these tool calls, whether it's via MCP or otherwise, doesn't really matter. This is where really the jailbreaks mean something because the jailbreaks can actually meaningfully change outcomes of like deleting databases, leaking data, sending
Mhm.
emails, all these kind of things.
Yeah. Wild. And what has been the most malicious type of script or thing done, right, to get people's private data that you've seen so far at this point in time, and it's September 25th for those who are watching.
Yeah, I think that there's not been a huge high profile enterprise case of this happening,
Mm,
or with a very particular like celebrity or what have you. I
yeah.
would almost certainly be sure that it would be happening in smaller areas. I think part of the reason is just because MCPs haven't really been widely available yet. To
Yeah.
say most MCP adoption is happening with developers
Yeah.
who are like somewhat aware of these risks. They're using it
Yeah.
from like Cursor, VS Code. The only chat client that uses MCP is Claude Desktop, and not that
Mm,
many people are using it compared to ChatGPT. Regarding our post of ChatGPT exploits, that too actually happened through developer mode and not through the regular
mm,
ChatGPT app, which
okay.
is a sign that OpenAI is clearly taking this very seriously. The path of, yeah, ChatGPT being able to access your emails is probably quite far until this
Mm,
problem is resolved. And it's a very hard problem to resolve.
interesting. And so, does what do you and your team essentially suggest people do, right, to protect themselves at this stage? And what do you see coming?
Yeah, I think right now the MCP ecosystem is extremely immature and to be honest, is not ready, right, for a lot of like productionized adoption. I think
Yeah.
there's a ton of things that are wrong with the current systems. If you're using some of these email assistants, just be careful that you don't auto send anything and you
Mm,
actually review a lot of the things. So I know Perplexity Pro has recently released integrations with email, similar with, I think, Howie and many others. And so just be really aware about these jailbreak risks where if it can read your email, it can exfiltrate it. And then,
mm,
yeah, I think for enterprise AI adoption, there's a lot of security barriers that are involved. And yeah, we need
mm,
to move this with a lot of intentionality.
yeah. And what about the social engineering side? Because I'll give an example of something that happened to me, and now I consider myself at least to be a fluent builder. And there was an example of a guy who had reached out to me on LinkedIn, and his LinkedIn profile looked legit, like he was some business owner, entrepreneur. We have mutual connections, right? And he reached out to ask if I wanted to help him out with the build of this project that leveraged both blockchain and AI, right, together. And I thought it was a very interesting request, right? So I took a look at the project myself, looked at the code in isolation, and then I didn't execute anything, right? I was negotiating a project budget. And then he said, "Oh, did you actually run the project yet on your local machine?" And I thought, that's interesting. So I went to look at the code again. And again, I'm just scanning the code myself because it looked like a very simple chess game. And I said, okay, it looks pretty simple. Shouldn't be an issue, but I'll run this in Claude Code just in case. And so I ran it through Claude Code. And then all of a sudden, and this was through Windsurf, all of a sudden Windsurf said, hey, this app is asking for direct access to these folders, right? And I said, something seems wrong. And that was about like 4 seconds. Canceled it. Then I was like, uh-oh, asked Claude Code. I said, hey, can you please run through this project and see if there's any malicious code in it? And then it said, yes. It was like, there's malicious code. It has this like well-known Trojan that's pulling across the web at the moment. And then I went back to this LinkedIn guy. Of course, I deleted everything, had to check all my keys, refresh them. And the guy, of course, did not respond, right? I reported him on LinkedIn, reported him to Atlassian because he actually was posting this code, this project on what is Atlassian's version of GitHub? Gitbucket, I think.
Get
Is
back.
it Bitbucket? Yeah, yeah. So reported it and they took it down. But this was the first time in a long time where even I was essentially duped into running something like this. And yeah, had you or your team ever experienced any of this type of social engineering? Because I've heard that it's getting a lot of developers with that sort of setup.
Yeah, it's actually interesting that you mentioned like social engineering attacks because fundamentally, a lot of the agent security vulnerabilities are just a form of social engineering
Yeah.
attacks. Social in the sense of like social for the LLMs, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, there's a lot of really interesting social engineering attacks happening with, in particular, developers because they have a lot of the tooling that
Yep.
makes it easy to cause these kind of attacks. So there's like a lot of supply chain attacks going on where if you install certain packages and then ask Cursor or something to go look through that package, it can go jailbreak it. And then if Cursor has access to your command line, right, there's a
Mm,
lot of manipulation where it can do where, it'll be like, if you just press the cursor and let it go do its thing. You'll just let it run commands, go in YOLO mode, which is turned on by default, which is insane, by the way.
Yes.
And yeah, there's so much that you can do just by simple jailbreaks. And people do this thing, I forgot the name of it, but essentially they get like very common package names, but with a spelling mistake on it. So it might be like,
Yes.
instead of lang chain, it might be like lang CHHA or something like that.
Seriously. And it's
And
such
then-
simple things.
It's super simple. But that domain squatting these sort of simple packages so that they can either the package itself is malicious, or there are like hidden payloads contained within these code bases that can manipulate cursor or have different side effects. And yeah, I think generally agentic AI has really taken off in coding in particular, and giving agents, like these coding agents, abilities to create databases, destroy databases, modify databases, handle with payment APIs, like all of these crazy things. And there's a lot of like very unsophisticated vibe coders coming in who don't know about these risks. And so these are really the newfound risks that people are trying to bank on to, exploit.
Fascinating. Yeah. Did you hear about I think there was a NPM hack or major issue recently. And so I think I got a notice was from GitHub or some people around GitHub telling everybody to update any NPM related packages. And I think the acceleration I'm seeing, because I have some friends, colleagues who work for banks, and they're also talking about how they're trying to hire more humans to try and tackle the AI driven attacks. And you can't keep up. Like adding
it's crazy.
will not. Yeah. And are you seeing the same in the circles that you're working with, or even clients?
I think for sure, just generally there's a acceleration of code happening because of like coding AI tools, and you're starting to see just like general increases in amount of like production software, but verification time of, is this code correct? Is this code like lacking in vulnerabilities? This is like really where the bottleneck is at. I previously actually was building some automated hacking tools where you would get an AI agent to like automatically hack your code base and find security vulnerabilities. And this space is actually really maturing right now with companies like Expo, who have really crushed the market by, essentially becoming the best hacker in the world, regardless of human or AI. Like they are already provably superhuman compared to, like the rest of the world. So they ranked number one in this website called HackerOne, which is essentially like it's like a leaderboard for hacking, right? Of who makes the most money finding vulnerabilities. And they actually like provably ranked number one, which was insane. But yeah, it really is this really interesting tug of war between increasing code velocity and bottlenecked by code verification speeds.
Yeah. Now, I would love for you to talk more about Edison.Watch and your team. What inspired you guys to get together? Yeah, how many are in the team, if you're okay sharing that? And what you guys are looking forward to in the future in terms of where you're headed.
Yeah, so we're a team of 4 people. We're like majority Oxford computer science alumni. This is how we mostly know each other. We're really interested in this sort of increasing wave of security vulnerabilities that come as a result of AI.
Yeah.
Agentic AI especially has just scope for doing so much more economically valuable work that if you can't really trust what the agent's doing and worry about these catastrophic risks, it just doesn't work. And that's just simple math of you just need, with like higher leverage, you just have higher attack surface areas that attackers can exploit. And so there really does need to be the security layer that handles your data correctly, handles multi-agent communication correctly. For example, imagine my agent wants to do something with someone else's agent, but maybe someone else's agent is actually malicious. So how do you facilitate the communication between my agent and someone else's agent? And then there's all this kind of firewalling. And people think that AI and giving AI tools, whether by MCPs or through tool calls, is just like giving humans tools, but it's actually not quite the same, right? Imagine an example where you give a CFO access to accounting software and Slack.
Yeah.
They're not stupid enough to leak company financial data onto the public Slack, but agents are, right? Whether it's by malicious or by benign things. And traditional like role-based access control really breaks down because humans used to do that data flow management of dictating what can flow between different data pipes. And so these are all of the, like the boring data plumbing problems that we're trying to solve at Edison. And yeah, we really want to build the best open source data firewalls to prevent,
Interesting.
frankly, a lot of the Asian disasters. So if you pip
Yeah.
install open-edison, you
Yeah.
can install a MCP firewall, which essentially manages, like really prevents data exfiltrations like the ChatGPT email attack that we showed through a very simple and deterministic algorithm.
Fascinating. And yeah, I think the Slack example that you gave as well, this is an interesting one because you'd think that like with these MCP agents that I know it's still developing, but probably makes sense if they can read all of the data policies for a company first before executing anything. But because it's such a new territory, those rules are not really baked in yet. I did notice there was Figma's MCP that was released recently. Someone noticed that it actually does install some sort of prompt or instruction at the very beginning, which a lot of developers, are appreciating. And I'm wondering if do you think that'll become part of a rule or a protocol for most MCPs beforehand?
I'm actually not familiar with the Figma example. I have seen.
Yeah, I'll bring it up. Let's see. So Figma MCP. Yeah, this one right here. Hopefully you can see it on screen.
Yeah, Figma. Science system.
So it's a very simple thing for design related stuff, but I would expect that this could become a thing for most MCPs to be able to safeguard themselves when they're being installed into a system.
Yeah, I think this one's, I need to look into it properly to have a definitive opinion, but I think this one should be fine. There's a lot of like MCPs introduce like weird dynamics with like cross system interactions. This is, I think, the more like underrated part of you can mix multiple systems together. And like, even if you have role-based access controls correct for one application, I don't know, take Figma and you say, okay, all of this is, sound, like you just take the RBAC from Figma and you just apply it directly into the Figma MCP. These RBACs can still break down the moment you have multi-system and like cross-system data governance, where, I don't know, if it's Figma and email, then you can still end up with like your data being exfiltrated to some random attacker. And there's a lot of like really granular, just ways in which the agent can be manipulated. And
Yeah. So I'll definitely share that with you after, because I think those examples from the Figma MCP, Notion has their MCP now as well. And Notion's an interesting one because even for me, like I have put so much of my own personal information and knowledge, right? Day-to-day life, also work, into Notion for years. And I do see the use of AI or responsible AI in a Notion environment to be absolutely critical. But with the MCPs, that means very easy access, right, into a lot of that personal information. And for now,
it's double-edged sword, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword.
Exactly.
It knows everything about you. It is probably going to be better than ChatGPT memory.
Exactly.
And yet, because of the risks involved, and you want to be able to have this sort of selective, okay, I want you to be able to share this kind of information, use the information from my Notion to adjust it to my preferences, but I don't want you to tell that that I'm going through something hard or hit like these like sensitive details, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, there's really a lot of problems that need to be solved for, I think, just the maturation of MCPs for both consumers and for regular people of, like how data is handled. This is a extension of people used to clown on Google for controlling all your data and having access to your location and all of these kind of things. But as you have agents fulfill the promise of doing tasks for you, being your personal secretary, all of these things, it is just going to be crazy how much, data risk that's going to pose for the individuals.
100%. And yeah, people forget that the same sort of concerns were there with Google early on back in the day. I remember I had my concerns of Google just storing all my information. Now it's the norm. We just feed it, give it everything constantly. But since we're close to the half-hour mark, I thought I'd at least get Kayleen to ask her questions in case she needs to leave soon. So Kaylee, you want to just do a quick intro and then ask her question?
Awesome. Thank you so much for letting me pop into this conversation today. As George knows, this is like one of my favorite topics. I'm an entrepreneur and I'm a marketing strategist for a lot of other entrepreneurs in the tech world. But mostly what I'm really passionate about is helping us all have a better relationship with technology and staying safe within our relationship with technology, understanding what the risks are, but also what can be within our control is so important. So that's why I loved everything that you shared today. And I think for me, I'm still interested, or just if you could summarize for founders interested in adopting an MCP or using AI agents, what is like the bare minimum first step safeguard, like something you would recommend to just make sure they have in place before they go crazy with it?
Yeah, I think procedural, just trying it out very procedurally and not turning all of the tools on, but actually like only turning on what you need. I think that could really goes a long way. And I think we also have the open source, like Open Edison firewall that might be interesting for just managing all of your MCPs if you want to connect it. This currently only works for Cursor, VS Code, and more of the developer-centric apps, but eventually we want to make it just a very universal open source firewall that everyone's protected from, much in the same way that in the past we used to install antiviruses. And then, yeah, I think as early adopters, we love just adopting new things. But I think with MCPs, especially if it can write or communicate with the external world, I just really emphasize caution around reading through what the AI actually is doing and yeah, not really taking anything, like making sure that no data is being exfiltrated and just read what it says. The most important part is certainly just being very careful with actions that have write operations. So ability to send data or like ability to, yeah, do something for real. We're not at the stage
Mhm.
yet where agents are ready to do actions for you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I have to hop, but
Yeah,
it was
of
great
course.
conversation. Bye.
All right.
Thank you
Thanks
so
again.
much.
Yeah, she has another meeting next. So yeah, I think what I put in there, do you think that it is important for us on the human side to be more consciously aware of our tools or apps or MCPs as this is proliferating?
I think for sure, for like the average user, I think the reason why OpenAI hasn't made MCPs or connectors available yet is because of these security vulnerabilities and making it only available for developers. And certainly for, I guess, a lot of like solopreneurs or SMBs, people are starting to experiment with it to unlock productivity. I think being aware is certainly the right approach in the present. I think in the future, companies like us or many other I think open source initiatives as well as companies, I think will develop far better firewalls. And in some sense, you can think about it as if you have one agent doing a task for you, you'll have another agent actually monitoring the other agent, almost like a bodyguard, right? Making sure that it doesn't get hijacked by random external viruses, that it's not acting against your interest. And yeah, I think you'll have just multiple agents watching your productivity agents so that you don't have to worry and be paranoid and be looking at all of these transactions all the time.
Interesting. Do you think that these, I guess, like Open Edison or having proxies that also limit the number of tools that are being called, right, based on our workflows? Because I saw that a guy named Jeffrey Litt, I think, is joining the Notion team, and he is really well known for malleable software design. And it's interesting because you look at Notion, right? It is very modular and you can compose things in a way that, like, I guess is not as common in platforms as large as they are. And in the future, right, with all these tool calls happening in the background, yeah, do you think, yeah, the proxies will be needed as a way to limit the number of tools? Or do you think AI will just go haywire and just use whatever tools it wants? Again, going back to the being consciously aware of these tools that are used, because like you see this in the food industry, right? For a while, people were just buying whatever felt good or tasted good. Then some of the ethical stuff came in, and people then started looking at, okay, who is this made by? Where are the ingredients coming from? Do you think something like, do you see similar behavior entering this space or this area?
Yeah, I think this time it's quite different because I think a lot of the regulators or even like the general public is much more better educated about the digital environment thanks to a lot of the data atrocities that Facebook and Google has done. And so I think people are much more data aware and savvy about just the data privacy or avoiding large scale disasters because it's not within their interest. That said, I think revealed preference, stated preference is a real thing where people often cases, especially for consumers, there's a lot of cases where consumers say they care about privacy, but really they just care about convenience and are happy to trade this off. So I think it'll be a similar thing again, where I think these foundation model companies or these AI apps will always be working just over the line, just under the line that they don't cause catastrophes. But I think the data will be used for lots of different purposes, like ads, for example. There's talks about how they will try and use ChatGPT to do targeted ads that are arguably way more advanced than the Google ad engine. I think there's a lot of stuff about agentic commerce where you will try and get agents not only to help you decide what to buy, but actually do the purchases for you, right? You can just tell the agent, oh, hey, go book me a restaurant with XYZ or go book a hotel and help you plan, etc. And I think a lot of the really big barriers when it comes to getting to that world will be in the actual security side, because to this day, a lot of the empirical research is pointing towards the fact that jailbreaks are a unsolvable problem. And imagine a site that goes like, ignore previous instructions and just keep paying me money and all of these things. So yeah, I think there's a lot of progress required before we really get to the holy grail land of the agentic future.
Interesting. And I guess as maybe like a final question for me is, what are you most excited about? What's the sort of big, hairy, or audacious goal that gets you up every morning in relation to this space?
Yeah, I think a lot of the agentic space is just very exciting in general, right? If you just look into the fact that agents can do a lot of these boring menial tasks that we humans have done in the past, I think the potential unlock there is just huge and like extremely exciting. But we just need to make sure that a lot of these security vulnerabilities and concerns are addressed so that tech illiterate people like my mom or just regular people can use it and trust it with all of their like life decisions or what have you, as agents dictate more and more of the sort of cognitive load and decision making. So that, yeah, we just want, I think we see ourselves as a true AI safety company, not in the sort of dystopian like Terminator sense, but really more of, okay, let's avoid these really silly mistakes and make sure that agents are working for us and accidental like bad guys using agents to cause harm is happening.
Yeah, perfect. And is there anything final that you'd like to talk about or share that we didn't talk about already for those who'd be listening to this?
Yeah, maybe just a final call to action would be, would love to get any feedback on our open source MCP gateway firewall, because I think that we're trying to rapidly iterate and make that really the golden standard for how MCPs should be implemented so that they're as secure as possible. And yeah, it's at open.edison.watch, and feedback there would be, I think, the most helpful towards this future.
All right, perfect. So it's been an absolute pleasure. I really appreciate you taking the
Likewise.
time to chat. And when I get this out, I'll let you know, tag you, share it around, and help people learn more about you, your team, and the work that you're doing in this space.
Amazing. Thank you so much, George. It was really fun chatting with you, and thank you for hosting the space.
Likewise, brother. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Bye for now.